Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel, and we continue our audio series on a variety of health, emotion, and coaching related topics. We try to have these out daily or almost daily. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fall short. But anyway, there's over 300 titles in the audio library for you to check out here on YouTube, so hopefully something that's helpful to you. Also, if there's something I can do for you that would be helpful, then please feel free to drop a comment below, or you can also contact via the YouTube messaging system and or on Twitter at PO Perception. That's P as in Paul, O as in Oreo, Perception. And we can get back to you there. Working with new clients and hoping to get some new clients before the close of 2020. It's been an interesting year, to say the very least, worldwide. Anyhow, today we're going to talk about trauma and things that unhealed trauma can do to a person. As a trauma recovery specialist and who's been working in trauma recovery for at least 20 years, 13, almost 14 of so, full-time professionally, I can say that trauma recovery is one of the things I'm most passionate about in the world, because I think that especially Western medicine handles trauma completely incorrectly in a lot of cases, and handling it more directly would be better for everyone, including but not limited to those who've been through it and the family and friends and loved ones who are trying to help a person cope with it. So the first thing that a person who has unhealed trauma will go through is self-hate and self-loathing. This is because they believe a misnomer. The misnomer is that they could have done something, said something, been something differently in order to bring about a different result in a traumatic experience. If I had left earlier, could I have prevented someone from getting assaulted? If I had spoken different words, could I have prevented a suicide? If I had been kinder, would I have been able to convince my spouse not to drink? If I'd been more submissive, would he or she not have hit me? Whatever the trauma is, there's the replaying of it and the idea that if I had acted differently, I could have prevented it. And while this may be factually possible, obviously different circumstances and different reactions allow different possibilities. To relive repetitively the thought that one could have done or said something different in order to bring about a different result is actually only going to lead to self-hate and self-loathing, because at the end of the day, we cannot go back in time. We have not yet invented a time machine, and so that repetitive nature is, in fact, going to be negative all the way around. The next thing is emotional repression. So emotional repression is the dumbing down or attempted elimination of all emotional reactions, both positive, negative, and neutral. And so for a person who has been through trauma, the act of being emotional about something makes them often feel out of control or unable to cope, or as though once the emotion gate opens, it'll be like a flood and they can't stop it, they can't alter it, they can't control it, they can't come back from it. And so what happens is a person will almost go through the motions in a zombie-like or robotic manner, because they figure, if I never show emotion, if I never give way to emotion, then I don't have to deal with it, and someone can't judge me for it, or I can always be in control if I'm neutral at all times. The trouble is, the more we repress emotion, the more it builds positively or negatively in our minds, in our hearts, in our mindset, and eventually it'll come its way out. It will force its way out. Many times this happens through self-hating behavior, through self-harm. Other times it can happen through addictive behaviors, but usually when repressed emotions come out, it's not in a positive way. And so emotional repression is not a good thing. The next is flashbacks and reliving the trauma. For a person who has been through trauma, especially abusive traumas or sudden traumas where they've lost all control, be it an accident or natural disaster, reliving from a scent perspective or sense perspective, sight, sound, taste, touch, feel, and emotional recall. A person will relive that day, that moment, those moments around it, even sometimes the moments right after it or right before. They're reliving it to try again to see if there's anything they could have said or done differently. And also because certain things can re-trigger a smell, a word, a phrase, a slam of a door, a certain sound, a certain location. All of these things can re-trigger and take a person back to these events. It's part of trauma recovery therapy is going through it with a qualified professional and helping a person to understand that they did in fact make it through and that they are in fact okay. And I've got to grab my phone, so I'll be back in just a minute here. And the reliving of trauma can be several times a day, several times a week, or can be much more spaced out, where you only relive it in certain circumstances. It's different for every person. The next thing a person may do in these situations is sabotaging relationships. This can be something as simple as pushing people away emotionally when things are not going well. This can be letting people close and then pushing them away, or it can be literally not reaching out for social interaction, ghosting, and things of that general nature. So overall, it's definitely a situation where, to the degree of reality that a person is ready to deal with things, the sabotage of relationships can be extremely difficult, and oftentimes is not even something a person is consciously doing. It's an unconscious manifestation of things, and then we go forward from there. The next thing on the list would be these individuals often assume the worst. And so a pessimism or a obsession with control of the worst is always going to happen to me is a major thing. And it's not necessarily something that they actively do in a thought. It's just the presumption that the worst will happen. The worst is going to happen. The worst is the only thing that can happen to me, and I'm going to lose anytime I take a risk. And so many of these individuals who are trauma core related are risk averse, or they'll take risks without any fear of reprisal because they don't actually care about their life because they're so used to reliving the trauma. It's like, okay, I'll take whatever risk I have to, and whatever happens, who cares? That does happen too on the other end of the spectrum. The last thing I would say is anxiety and anxiousness, panic disorders, anxiety disorder, and things of that general nature. The fear of the unknown becomes a predominant thing for many individuals in this situation. And so anytime there's a new circumstance, anytime there's something new to look at, it becomes overwhelming because it's like, well, the unknown can lead me to circumstances that are uncomfortable. The discomfort leads me in negative directions. And so that's what's there. So hopefully this is helpful for everybody. And again, comment below, and we'll be back with more tomorrow. But until then, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.